Right, well, it's quieted down. I guess we'll start. Welcome you to the Kaysville City Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, March 23rd. And our opening item on the agenda is to welcome Tom. And then the next item is to
Nice to be on the agenda.
approve I'll seek a motion for approval of the minutes for the March 9th meeting.
I'll make a motion that we accept it and approve the minutes for March 9th.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Great, thank you. Next is a conditional use permit for major home occupation B preschool at 370 East Pin Oak Circle for Avinda Bybee.
Okay, as an introduction to the item, Ms. Bybee's applied for the conditional use permit to run the preschool out of her house. You can see the property located in your packet or on the map on the screen just at the corner of Pin Oak Circle. Essentially the plan for it, and she's here to give more details, would be to have 2 classes throughout the day, a morning and an afternoon class, around about 3 hours apiece, starting around 8 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and she'll get more specific with you as she knows that. Based on a preschool status and the considerations of our ordinance, because it is an organized group class, it is required that there be a restriction on the amount of either cars bringing people to the classes or the number of students that can be in the class, essentially to limit the traffic in either case so that it's less impactful. Based on that and other experience and what we've been doing on similar uses throughout town, having met with the applicant and reviewed the site, staff's recommending approval with the condition that the students be limited to 12 as a maximum at a time. With that, I'll let the applicant present any further, or be happy to take questions if you have them of myself.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm guessing we have the Bybees here. Do you want to state your name and if you have a comment?
I know there's some concern with the traffic flow around the inside of the cul-de-sac, as you can see. And we have a pretty large driveway, so we could take auxiliary traffic if parents are going to stay for longer than a drop-off pickup situation. The hours we're looking at is 8:45 to 12 noon, and then 1 o'clock to 4:15. So I think we're out of the range of typical commuters. So I'm not anticipating large impacts to traffic.
Also, as of right now, our plan is to have 7 to each due to space. So we are not planning on having it as well.
Would it be a limitation on your plans if we were to put a condition on here that you'd limit the children to 9 or something like that? Would that be? Okay.
Well, I have to say, I live next door to the Bybees, and so we are for that. You have spoken to the other neighbors around, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All the neighbors that I've met so far, I've mentioned it to.
Yeah, you haven't lived in the neighborhood all that much, so this might be a way to get to know them, so.
So have you operated a daycare before then, prior to moving to this location?
No, I have not operated at this location. I have 10 years teaching experience plus 7 years working at a daycare facility. And so I have a lot of experience working with children and also management of children groups and programs.
And a lot of guts.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
I'll make a motion that we grant a conditional use permit for major home occupation B preschool to Avinda Bybee at 370 East Pin Oak Circle.
I'll
Second.
second.
Aye.
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 For clarification on our purposes, Commission, if I might, is it still 12 students, or did you want to modify that as discussed?
The 9
So the state law is
allows.
12 is the most, is maximum, right?
That's what we've done on experience based on daycares,
Okay.
which are restricted slightly different than preschools. Per the motion, I would assume we probably have it at the 12. There are some specifics through the way that the Department of Human Services with the state, and that's partly what she stated, is being familiar with their requirements and how many they permit. That's about where the 8 pops in. So if there is specific concern that needs to be 9, as I understood the motion, it's the 12 as recommended, but certainly that could be
I'm fine with
just
the
seeking
12.
clarification.
I wasn't concerned about.
Okay.
My eye was for 12. How
Same
about that?
here.
Okay, thank you.
12, you all right with 12? All right, we'll just go as it is then. Great. Good luck. Okay, next is conditional use permit for farm animals at 1618 South Wilford Drive for Mandy Brimhall.
Okay, so the property just off of Burton Lane on the southwest side of town is just a little bit over half an acre at 22,000 plus square feet. With that amount of space on it, that could allow up to 50 fowl, rabbits, or similar animals. Currently, they don't have any on site, but they do have, as when I met with them on the property, a shed building on the southwest part of the property. And it's got a little doggy door is the appropriate term, but so she would expect to use part of that as the coop, and then would put a pen around it, a chicken run of sorts. So just looking to get the approval in place. Spoke with her about the concerns on it. There's ample room, in my opinion, and spacing between the neighbors, especially where it's anticipated to be located. So with that, staff recommended approval of it, subject to that enclosed chicken run being on site before the animals are brought in. And with that, she is here this evening to give additional details, and again, I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you. Are there questions? If you're here, do you want to state your name and comment? Okay, thank you for coming.
I had just one general question for staff. So her built coop could be within the 15 feet?
Yes, very easily. So it's the width of the lot is roughly 110 feet. And so just to give you some perspective on the distance on that, being in the back corner, she'd well exceed the 15 feet minimum
I
requirement.
think what my question also would be then, so if somebody else put a coop in that same corner, would they have to be 15 feet from her coop?
Oh, no, so the distance requirement is from another dwelling. So they couldn't put a dwelling that far back, partly based on setback requirements and things anyway, but it wouldn't preclude anybody else from doing something similar with a detached garage or shed or also a coop. And then it's worth mentioning, I believe, I didn't take the call, but I think we had received a call as staff just with a concern that there may be rats or something that come into play. So it comes up occasionally as a concern with chickens, a general cleanliness, which again is kind of already a requirement of the ordinance, seems to take care of that, but that was a concern that was expressed. So if there's need by the commission to address anything further, that's one thing that's come up.
Thank you.
I can say something about that too. I've already received a special feeder that is rat proof. So a lot of times rats do come into chicken coops because they have to be out all the time. But I have one that rats can't even get into. Plus we're doing hardwood cloth all around the gun, so rats can't get in that either. So.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Great.
That's good to know.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant a conditional use permit for farm animals to Mandy Brimhall at 1618 South Wilford Drive with the condition that an enclosed chicken coop be installed before the chickens are brought on site.
I'll second.
Aye.
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 Great. All right, next is a conditional use permit for farm animals at 1117 South 50 West for Ann Mortensen.
Okay, as a similar request, this property in an R18 zone. I was informed that I misled you when I said the call that we received was regarding the last property, was regarding this property, so apologies on that. But a similar request, the Mortensens have about 0.4 acres, over 18,000 square feet. And so that would allow up to 13 fowl, rabbits, or similar animals. Immediately, they hope to be able to put rabbits on site. That's the initial hope. They've got, I'm going to slaughter the terms for it, but a little cage or run that the animals keep in, so it's enclosed on the sides and the top, so the other animals can't get in and the bunnies don't get out. And she's got an area in the yard where they would go. But long term, their hope is also maybe to have a couple of hens and chickens on site as well, a little bit further out. And so with the 13 animals that are allowed, that would be a total of rabbits and chickens combined that we would permit based on the space they have on site. So 7 rabbits, 6 chickens, or some combination similar to that. Having met with the property owner on site and taken a look at things that, in my opinion, seem to be in pretty good shape and good order, where they've got the area for the rabbits in the little cage already, I just suggested the condition that before the chickens go, similar to the last one, that they have a run or coop for that particular animal. So that concludes my report. And
Great, thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, we don't want 13 animals, we want like 3, so it's not that big.
Great. All right, I'll take a motion if we're ready.
I'll move that we can grant a conditional use permit for farm animals for Ann Mortensen at 1117 South 50 West with,
Go ahead.
do I need to say with the recommendation or the stipulation that an enclosed coop or run be installed before the chickens are brought on site?
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, next is a public hearing and request to rezone 5.7 acres of property at 1191 and 1223 West Webb Lane from A1 light agricultural to R120 single-family residential zone for John Progress and Jonathan Fairbanks.
And
Start us off.
then I might recommend, it's up to the commission, item number 6 is regarding essentially the same project. I don't know if you wanted to hold the public hearing for each at the same time or address them separately, but they are regarding the same. We'll deal with the rezone first, and I'll go through that matter. So the property here on Webb Lane is one of a couple that we'll be looking at in this area this evening. We've got just over 5 acres of property. You can see here on the map where that's located on the south side of the street, about midway between Angel and Sunset at that point, or Flint. The zoning map here shows it's currently an A1 agricultural zone, surrounded by R120 to the west and south. There's still some agriculture property across the street, and then directly to the east is a property that also remains the A1 agriculture site. The request to do the R120 would be similar to those properties to the east and, the west and the south of it. With that zoning, essentially what they hope to be able to do is create a 10-lot subdivision. As you can see here on the screen or in your packet, there are currently 2 homes on site, the front Webb Lane. Those 2 properties or homes would remain, and then an additional 8 lots would be created. Each one of the lots meets the minimum size and standard for the R120 zone. And so based on that and the nature of the rezone is the initial consideration in item number 5. General plan, when it talks about rezone in this area, west of I-15, says housing should be at approximately 2 units per acre with some higher density along the major streets. I did place on the dais there in front of you before the meeting in request a copy of the major street plan. Perhaps not as relevant to this item, but as we're discussing rezones throughout the night, it's probably of pertinence for you. Major streets defined in multiple ways throughout our ordinance. It comes out of Title V of the city ordinances, and essentially it includes collectors, arterials, major arterials. There's quite the list of streets that you can see there, and then there's a map that reflects that. So the major streets vary in their size and scope, but or most anything that's above just a typical neighborhood street or 55-foot right-of-way. In this case, Webb Lane is actually one of those as a significant local street. But that will be for your reference tonight, so if you have questions about that with anything, But in this case, it wouldn't be additional density that we're looking at. It would be the 2 units per acre. An R120 standard subdivision is the request. It is a public hearing, as noted, to take comments on from anyone who's interested. And we're just looking for a recommendation to forward to the City Council on the rezone.
Great, thank you. So are you saying we ought to have the public hearing for both at the same time?
You're welcome to do so if it's opened up, but you certainly can do the rezone first. It's just where it's the same project.
All right, well, let's go with a public hearing and make sure there's no confusion. We'll do a public hearing. And you can speak on either, but we'll take on item number 6. We'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this?
My name's Jerry Preston, Holy Craft Homes. I live at 177 North Main Street in Farmington, and we're representing Jonathan Fairbanks and John Project on this one, and just excited about the project. It seems pretty straightforward. We're excited about the area we're in, and look for approval from the planning commission.
Thank you. Okay, great. Any questions? Is there anyone else here and from the public that would like to address this item? Anyone here that would like to address item numbers, what is it, 6? 6. 5 or 6. This is across the street, right? There.
Well, so item number 6 is the subdivision plat for this
okay,
property,
right.
which is, so we're still talking about the Fairbanks and
Then
Projes
that makes
property.
more sense. All right, so, going once, twice? Okay, we'll close the public hearing for both items 5 and 6. Is there discussion?
I looked at it in the surrounding neighborhood. That's one of the things we consider in the general plan, under the goals and policies of it is, does it conform, does it fit? Do we think it meets the requirements? And looking at it. Is it on?
The mics seem weak
Hello?
today.
They do seem weak.
Well, I think that there's something wrong with them too. So I think that in looking at it, one of the considerations we do is we got to look at the general plan, the housing, or the goal policies, and whether it conforms, whether we think it meets it. And I look at it, and I think it does. Personally, I look at the surrounding neighborhood, and on the adjoining properties where there is housing, it conforms with those. So as I looked at it, it's a nice cul-de-sac that it turns into. I think it meets all the requirements as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. It looks like it's just a continuation of the at least the neighborhood to the, what is that, south and west.
Just one concern that I have, Lyle, you'd mentioned that they have 2 existing homes and are going to add 8 more lots, but it looks like there's 3 existing homes. Is one of those intended to come down? The lot to the east, the northeast corner, appears to have 2 houses in it, so is that one?
That's a detached garage.
It's just a garage, okay.
So you're correct, there are existing buildings, so on I think it's lot 1 is labeled, there's a home and a detached garage, so the
Okay.
building would remain. However, on this property to the south of the house, at least once the subdivision's in, there's a barn or, anyway, detached building there. Because it would then be on its own standalone lot, would eventually be removed, would have to be included with the dwelling or taken
No,
out.
and that's fine. The detached garage has its own drive and doesn't appear
It
connected to
does
the
look that way.
house. So I just wanted to clarify on that.
One thing I'll say, so a rezone is a legislative decision, and contrary to maybe a misconception or a popular belief, we aren't, with a decision like this, we're not bound by precedent like a court would be. Having said that, just to the east of this, we not so long ago approved the Sunrise Lane R1LD rezone. I think this is, if we're going to approve that, I mean, again, I said we don't have to follow precedent, but if if we felt like that one was rezonable, this one's less impactful than that one, so it's more rezonable, if that's a word. So I'm inclined to say it's along Webb Lane, which is a significant local street. It doesn't drastically change the character of the neighborhood. In fact, I think it's exactly in line with it, and I think it's in line with the general plan. So I'm in favor of the rezone and the subdivision plat.
Thanks. Should we take a motion? You ready to discuss more?
I'm good.
So would we make two separate motions on this?
Please.
Yeah, okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion then that we recommend approval of the rezone of 5.7 acres of property from A1 light agricultural to the rezone of, to R1 20 single-family residential.
I second that motion.
Aye.
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 All right, and with that, I'll continue and make a motion that we recommend approval for preliminary plat for Meadows at Webb Lane subdivision at 1191 and 1223 Webb Lane.
I'll second that one.
Aye.
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 Congratulations. All right, so next is, let's see, are we on number 7 now?
Yes.
Public hearing and request to rezone 3.99 acres of property at 1120 West Webb Lane from A1 light agricultural to RA residential agriculture zoning district and to include a PRUD overlay zone for Bonnie Ray. Hi. Thank you for coming.
Property. My daughter, I gave my daughter, or going to give my daughter an acre, 1.3, 1.1. So my plan is, my home is there existing. My plan is to have my daughter build next to me to the east, give her an acre, and the remaining piece in the back will remain one piece for my son.
Okay, thank you.
Three homes, including my son.
Okay, thank you. Lyle, do you want to give us a?
Yeah, she covered it fairly well. So the existing zoning, the A1, would allow for acre lot sizes. However, we don't allow flag lots on an A1 zoning district, and so the request to rezone to the RA zone is what's going to permit that possibility. And oh, well, the configuration is in a flag lot, so again, it would just be the one home on this lot, as she stated, for her daughter, it sounds like, which exceeds an acre in size, and then the access to the back lot is, as we considered, as a flag lot configuration, and so it would just be the larger lot to the back. And so the request for the zoning would just accommodate what she explained is the intent to accomplish. So again, it requires both the rezone to the RA and then the PRUD to allow that configuration. Easily exceeds the minimum requirements, at least in lot size. On the preliminary plat, there's a minor issue with the size of the flag stem is only 15 feet. And we require it be 30 feet for the access to the back. But again, there's beyond sufficient space to adjust that, so that would just be an item at final plat. We want to make sure it is corrected and it meets at least that 30-foot width. So we're not too concerned that that's not doable if the rest is acceptable to the commission.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do you want to have a seat for a second? We'll have a public hearing and see if anybody else wants to address this item. Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to talk on this item? Okay, there's none. I'll close the public hearing. Is there anything else you'd like to say now I've made you sit down?
No, I love the space.
Okay,
My goal is to keep it nice, big, and open, and
okay,
agricultural.
okay, great. Thank you.
Seems like the configuration of this lot is exactly why the PRUDs are around, because otherwise, and yet the lots are going to be nice sized and
Yeah, it's a good use of it.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think it's neat that your family wants to live so close. Very nice.
Is
And
there
the
any
only- oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering about fencing. Is there any requirement where the trail is one side?
So under a subdivision, if it's adjacent to incompatible uses, the planning commission could consider fencing requirement. There's no specific statement that it would have to be in there. There are many situations where they're not fencing that we've not put into place. I guess it'd be up to commission if you think that were necessary based on the circumstances.
Yeah, my only concern was the 15 feet as well on the flag lot. I do think that would need to be 30 feet to conform to the flag lot specifications and requirements. And as far as the fence, that's a great question on that. I wouldn't impose or try to, stipulate a fence along that. I think I'd leave that up to the homeowners and property owners to decide if they wanted to put a fence along there. Me personally, with the rail trail as active as it is, I'd probably put a fence up, but I don't think that's a condition I would place on it.
I mean, that's a good question. Does the fence help the enjoyment of the rail trail, or does it help the homeowner enjoy the privacy of their home more, right? And because if that's the case, then it's not really a concern of ours. If there's a health or a kind of enjoyment of life issue, I guess the fence could be required, but I don't know if that's required.
Certainly, as you go along the trail, there's some of both. Huh.
I'm inclined to not impose requirements like that.
Yeah, unless
And I think the concerns that normally are at play with a rezone request in Kaysville on the west side of I-15 are not at play in this one, and to some extent the last one we just did, but this one even more so because of, they're acre lots.
Oh.
West Kaysvillians rejoice.
Okay, well,
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to rezone of a 3.99 acres of property from A5 heavy agricultural to the RA residential agricultural with the PRUD planned residential unit development overlay zone. With the condition that the flag lot would have a 30-foot width.
okay, there's a second.
I second the motion.
Yeah, I think it's you.
I guess the only question I'd have was did we just combine both of them on that one?
That was just the first
Or
one,
was-
right?
Did we,
That was just,
because we're doing the same thing on that one, aren't
we
we?
didn't talk, she didn't talk about the preliminary
Okay.
plat.
I suppose the condition of the flag lot width would come with the subdivision plat itself, so perhaps we just save that condition for
Do you
the
want me
second
to
motion.
put both of them together?
You can place conditions with the rezone, would be appropriate, or maybe that would be more specific to the plat. But that is appropriate if there are specific conditions or stipulations that you want to do through rezone action, we can take care of it in that manner also.
Okay, I think we're good the way it is.
Okay, then
We'll
I,
just do another one for the preliminary plat.
yeah. So
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
And shall we do one, is there a motion for the, do we need to, maybe I should be more specific about having a public hearing on the preliminary plat approval, would that be for the record?
It's always safe to open it
Okay.
up just in case there are comments.
So this is another item on this, basically the same property, and we're going to have a public hearing for the preliminary plat approval of the Ray subdivision at 1120 West Webb Lane for Bonnie Ray. Is there anyone here? We'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on the preliminary plat approval part of this? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Take a motion.
I move that we recommend approval for the plat for the Ray subdivision at 1120 120 West Webb Lane.
With the 30-foot.
Oh, with the 30-foot drive.
I'll second that.
Aye.
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 Great.
Now you're done.
Good luck. Okay. Next is a public hearing and request to rezone of .69 acre of property at 1809 South Sunset Drive from R120, single-family residential, to R114, single-family residential zoning district, and to include a PRUD, planned residential unit development overlay zone for Rick and Jackie Jones. Okay.
I'm happy to give a quick introduction to the item. So the property on the south end of Sunset Drive, just on the east side of the street, you can see in your packet and again outlined on the map, is currently an R120 zone. The R120 is 20,000 square feet lot size, or 20,000 square feet per unit. They've got, I apologize, 0.69 acres of property. It's about 29,000 square feet when you do the math. So they're hoping, and they can explain in further detail, to be able to put an extra dwelling within the property through a subdivision. And so the way to do that, you'd have to go into a different zoning district that would allow more units per the square footage that they have. That's the purpose of the R114 request. So one lot per every 14,000 square feet. They exceed 28,000, so they could do that. But also, based on the configuration and the space they have, generally it's a 90-foot frontage requirement for a standard R114 lot. And in order to accommodate the space that is currently on the property, they're asking for the PRUD overlay that would allow for deviation and flexibility from that typical or traditional 90-foot frontage. In the staff report, it states that there's approximately 50 feet between the house and the property line. The applicants have informed me that as they've been out measuring, they believe it's closer to 67 feet. I kind of double-checked it, and I'm not certain what's what, so there's still a discrepancy and some question marks there on my part where they're finding different information.
What measurement are we talking about?
So it's essentially, oh, sorry, let's get to the right picture. The distance between the existing house and the property line to the north.
And the new building is planned in that space, right?
And that's where they hope to do something, is to the north of the existing
so
house.
the frontage is anywhere between 50 and 67 feet, just not.
Correct. So it sounds like there's some discrepancies. So certainly, if everything else lines up and that seems appropriate, we need to fine-tune that information before anything's final and approved on that, if the rest of it seems acceptable. So with that, because it's less than the 90 in either case, it requires the PRUD overlay. The configuration that they propose doing would be a common open space subdivision. So the lot would just be specific around the house on the front part of the west side of the property, and a separate lot would be created on the existing home, and then a shared common area in the backyards or on the east portion of the property would be the common open space portion of the subdivision. And per the ordinance, that's what allows that deviation. If they have sufficient common space, they can request smaller lot sizes. With the request on that, again, the consideration on the zoning from the general plan, and text has been added to the staff report regarding the density, which we've talked about west of I-15, major street consideration, and also the PRUD overlay, again, as it's required. The text is in there on the purpose and scope of that, if this meets that intent or not. Again, as a legislative act, is open to broad discretion and the will of the Planning Commission to provide the recommendation as they seem appropriate. I can lastly here show a little bit of detail that I know that they have more to provide on this. There's a outline of a floor plan, a concept that they think they'd like to build in that area. When I turn the time over, I'll let Jackie show the extra details that I believe she has tonight to pass around to the commission. So with that, if there are questions of the commission, I'd be happy to take those. But again, as a public hearing, it would be a good time to open it up if you feel appropriate, as I believe there are those who wish to comment on it.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any further questions of the staff? before we open up the public hearing? Okay. So, you're the Jones, right? We'll open the public hearing. You can stay there if you want and start us off. That might be helpful. Then you can explain things a little more if you want. Comment on what Lyle has already laid before us. So, we'll open the public hearing on item number 9, which is the request to rezone 0.69 acres of property at 1809 South Sunset, and from R120 to R114 with the PRUD. We'll open that public hearing now. Why don't you state your names, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the public.
Should I just kind of do an overview? Is that okay?
Sure, whatever, just your comments. I mean, Lyle started us off. We've got the information, so whatever you want to add to that.
You betcha. Okay, I think I can start here. Okay, what I kind of want to talk about a little bit, and this is what I brought to the planning, what we're checking on the Lyle, is that when we purchased this property in 2007, which was a great year, but now we're purchasing property. We ended up, we purchased over 2 acres, and of course, we then had to do the improvements and everything like that. We were under the R120 zoning at the time. And when we improved, of course, we had to put in the extra road and hand back a half acre. One of the things that was not done was it wasn't deeded back to the city at the time. So when I went and talked to him, I thought, I could probably pull that and say, we want to do 4 homes on that 2-acre property, but, and hopefully grandfather that road into it. But I have to be honest, it didn't feel ethical anyway to do that. So when I went and talked to him about it, I had suggested this. There was a cottage home that was there prior to building the 3 homes there and developing that area. There is, and I think that it is between 57 and 67 feet right now that is that space on that side, on that north side. So what I was thinking is if we approach to the city about rezone from R114 and PRUD overlay, it would accommodate a very small cottage home. And I wanted to kind of show you really quickly. Yeah. Yeah, here, and I can hand this to you. I thought we'd have an over thing to look, but if you would kind of peek at that, it's about 35 feet across is what that is right now. And the style of the homes are very old world. We would be staying within that same look and feel, and we keep it very, very well done. One of the things that's really important to me is being the developer and builder on these homes, and living there. That's our point, is to be able to stay and live there. This would be our smaller downsized home. But we really have fallen in love with this area and the neighbors, and really, really want to stay. That's kind of our position on that. We'll go ahead and stop there, and then we'll come back in a minute.
Great. Thank you. Okay, anyone else here to speak on this item? Would you come forward and state your name?
Do you have the ability to do PowerPoint presentations?
Yes, I can.
Would you I'd like to present to you some physical copies of the presentation I'm giving. And I also emailed yesterday afternoon to each of you a book version.
Thank you.
You had a chance to read it. Thank you.
You just have to let me know when you need to move something forward or backwards, so I'll get it up in a second.
We're real high tech there.
Thank you very much.
Bring it closer to you, maybe.
And it's not great,
Yeah,
though.
it's a little weak tonight.
Yeah, we're a little off tonight.
I have a loud voice, I'll just talk louder. My name is Matthew Mann. I live at 1795 Sunset. I am currently lot number 3 in the row at Sunset subdivision, and I am the most directly impacted by the request to rezone the Joneses property. And I am here because I want to preserve the residential character of the existing 3 homes. They're absolutely gorgeous. And I think what Jackie's trying to do will be an absolute detriment to the community and definitely our subdivision. So I'm asking that you completely and totally deny her request for rezoning. Next.
Oh, yeah. I think there's one on there.
But I'd like to start here. I'm right here in this zone, in this lot 3. What I'd like to do is point out to everybody just how much space is around my home, between my home and my neighbor's home, as well as between my home in relation to the entire neighborhood around us. You'll see it's quite nice. We've got a lot of open space. When Jackie rezoned this back in 2007? I'm sorry, 10 years ago. So she did a great job. And you can see it's a fantastic layout. It's a lot of open space. And lot number 1's 0.59 acres. Lot number 2 is 0.69 acres. And lot number 3 is 0.46 acres. So Jackie does have the largest piece of the pie there in the middle. The point is our subdivision is perfectly balanced the way it is right now. It's 1 home per half acre. That's what's, in my eyes, what's ideal for the west side of Kaysville. Next slide, please. This is a zoning map of our area. It's clear to see that west of the I-15 freeway is primarily A5, A1, RA, and a few of the R120s. We are located here, down there. You'll notice we are in the brown, so we are R120s. The Kaysville General City Plan states that west of I-15, there's an allowance for 0 to up to 2 homes per acre. That's where I got the preference for the 1 dwelling per half acre. And our subdivision is currently zoned as R120. And all the surrounding zones here are those larger ag and ag residential homes. So there's really no small, more compact home developments in our area. I'm asking that you fail her request on this, that the rezoning to R114 is not consistent with the surrounding areas in our zones, and also that we do not want to encourage spot zoning in Kaysville. Okay, this will be one tiny little spot that will be R114, and everywhere around it's going to be R120 or ag. So I'm asking you to consider that. Next slide. Okay. I went out and did some measurements for what she wanted to do. You can see on there, my lot, I face the street. I have 73 feet of frontage space across my house. Her home has 92 feet of frontage space to the street, and lot number 1 is a flip of my house, so it's exactly the same. It's 73 feet as well. The proposed dwelling that she wants to put in there is a maximum of 26 feet. Lyle identified on the document 26 feet. I went and measured it. It is 50 feet across in that location. Okay, the dwelling was 26. There's 16 feet from here, from this edge to her home where she has her stake, and 8 feet from here to my property line. So 50 feet is the right number. So my concern is this. The proposed dwelling is only 26 feet wide. That's 1/3 the size of my home. That's 1/4 of the size of her existing home. Okay? And the amount of open space between the homes is going to be greatly reduced. I mean, this is quite a bit of space. Right now, all of a sudden it comes down to 8 feet from my property line and 16 feet from her own. That is not consistent with the neighborhood. And then lastly on this one, the garage that you can put in there has got to be a street-facing single-car garage. All of our garages are oversized, 3-car side entry garages. It would not be consistent with the neighborhood when you drive down it. So I'm asking that you fail it due to 1734(1) of the PRUD purpose. New construction in already developed areas should, to the greatest extent possible, maintain the established mass, scale, height, width, and form of the surrounding buildings. And I also ask that you fill on 1734.5 PRUB additional criteria, a comprehensive and harmonious arrangement of the buildings must exist. That is not harmonious, and that is not comprehensive. If it was comprehensive, it would have been done 10 years ago when she originally zoned this property. Not as an afterthought now, trying to add it and force it into a space that shouldn't have it. Next one. Okay, so she's asking for a proposed common space overlay. So her intent is to have this as one section. This will be the secondary. This will be the overlay that's shared. My concern is this. Okay, so here to here, I take it back. That's only 42 feet. Yeah, it's only 42 feet. I apologize. Because 26, 8, and 8. So the area that's going to be allowed for that person, whoever's living here, is going to be right there that's shown. That's approximately 7,500 square feet. That's only half of an R14 required amount to be even zoned as an R14. So she said, well, where are they going to share the backyard? But they're not, because this home has windows for the majority of this space here, and with the shape of the lot, it's forcing this person to share this person's backyard. And unless you're living in neighbors with your neighbors, I mean, everybody likes their privacy. So that to me doesn't make sense. You know, I would think a common overlay would be something like a huge development that had a huge field and everybody had their backyards up to it and they all shared it. This is not sharing. This is one person's backyard next to another person's backyard. So that, I believe, is the only amount of space that they're going to have. So I don't think that's a good idea to be doing. The proposed dwelling site is 42 feet wide. So I ask that you fill it because, as was earlier stated, R14 requires 90 feet wide. And then also, the proposed dwelling is roughly 7,500 square feet. The property is 7,500 square feet. And it's only 0.17 acre, and that's for the yellow. And I'm asking that you fill it because it requires 14,000 square feet. And the proposed open space is 90% in this person's backyard, not that yard. So I'm asking that you fill it on 1734.7 common open space subdivision. The open space amenities should be located adjacent to all the dwellings in units and easily accessible to them. And I don't think that's easily accessible. Next slide. And then final, the Blessings Grove, I'm sure you guys have read it. Okay, it talks about Blessings Grove. We live in Blessings Grove. The founding father of Kaysville, Hector Hitty, settled in Blessings Grove. That is where he decided to have his cattle farm. Obviously, it was probably the nicest place in all of Kaysville, in his eyes, because he settled there. And I think he would be really, really sad if he knew that right now we were taking an amazing community in his backyard and we're slamming him with our house again. So I hope you consider that when you think about passing this rezone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? Please come up. State your name and
Hi, I'm Dana Ferguson. Rick Jones has dedicated his career to law enforcement to protect and serve our community, and he does this at a great financial loss to himself and to his family, as he could be earning more money almost anywhere else. And he and his wife Jackie spent several hundred hours volunteering to organize and execute 2 tremendously successful fundraisers for the Team Ballard Operation Underground Railroad that we did here in Kaysville and then in Bountiful. And so many of us were blessed to be able to be part of that because of them. And another thing about the Jones family is that anytime they see a friend or a neighbor in need, they come immediately. I myself have been protected and looked after by them many times in some dangerous situations. And many people have had Jackie work hundreds of hours putting on weddings in this beautiful backyard and their beautiful home. And she always does this free of charge. Anything they touch just seems to blossom. This is a beautiful development. There is nothing that Jackie and Rick do that isn't 100% gorgeous. And in addition to any place, people just knock on their front door. Several times while I've been visiting, people just knock on the door and say, can we come and see your home? So I don't think it needs to be a worry that whatever they create is going to be an eyesore or a detriment. It's going to be an addition. If they wanted to just build a garage that fit these dimensions, there's nothing any of us could say or do about it. It could be tin, cinder block, and it could be ugly. But that's not what they're asking. They're asking to put up something beautiful and a dwelling that someone on a law enforcement officer's salary can afford to live and retire in. And I think that's something that we as a community owe back to the people who make those sacrifices for us. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Go ahead, come forward.
Hello, my name is Shauna Mann. I also reside in the community at the Grove at Sunset. I wasn't planning on speaking today. I don't have anything prepared, and like Dan had mentioned, I don't question their character, their work ethic. This isn't a matter of whether or not Jackie and Rick will develop a beautiful home in that particular space. I absolutely have high regard and respect for the creativeness of this woman. Her homes are exquisite. I love my home. There's nothing like it in the city of Kaysville. I don't know if you've driven by, if you've seen it. They are unique. They are, they're just beautiful. The question here, and it's, I have a concern, I have a vested interest because I am the resident directly north of this proposed dwelling that they're asking me to put in. It infringes on our privacy. I'm worried about investment or resale. But my main concern is that is a small plot of land that, quite frankly, I don't know even if a tennis court would fit into that space. I'm here to voice my concern, not necessarily for, the legal ordinances or what is right or wrong, or whether or not she'll build a home that looks like a tin box or something that's just as immaculate and spectacular looking as the rest of our homes. I'm here for concern that if this gets passed, if you allow this to happen, what precedent you're setting for the rest of us in the community. We've lived in Draper, South Jordan, Sandy. The homes are on top of each other. We go outside, you can look into people's dining rooms. We moved away, we've been out of state, Arkansas with lots of land, lots of privacy, something that my husband desires. When we moved back here, we were very intentional about where we chose to raise our family, where we wanted to invest, and what community we wanted to be a part of. Kaysville has been phenomenal. We love the city of Kaysville. We researched, we looked at homes from Ogden to Lehigh. My husband works in Nashville. We searched the schools. We looked at the community, the family values, the religious values, the space, the feel, the openness that he desired, yet the closeness and the proximity of these little communities and neighborhoods in Station Park and the freeway. This is the ideal place to live. It is the best of the best along the Wasatch Front. And my concern is if this gets passed, and it has nothing to do with how beautiful or not, it breaks my heart really to be here in opposition of our neighbor. I'm saddened to be here, but I feel that if we don't say anything, and this is to get passed, and this small plot of land gets divided up like a piece of pie and sold just me, not just, you know, the residents in our little subdivision, but consider our neighbors that didn't show up, that weren't aware of this hearing, that maybe were afraid to hurt feelings, but also to consider the other residents in the city of Kaysville. We need to preserve this hometown feel that Kaysville's so proud of. We need to preserve this open space and remain consistent with the homes that are on the west side of the I-15 corridor. We need to protect the individual residents, like myself, who've chosen and were intentional about moving here, to protect our investment, to protect our property, our privacy, and to promote planned, healthy growth. I am all for growth. I'd love to see more retail. I'd love to see more restaurants and more schools. Our kids are reaping the benefits of healthy growth in Kaysville. They're in the best schools in the area because everyone wants to be here. But we don't want to be on top of each other. We don't want to buy into a neighborhood that was zoned specifically as R120, these gorgeous, approaching, you know, $750,000 homes, and then wake up one day and find out someone's gonna subdivide the property and slam a little home in there. That's not what we want, and that's our fear. Your citizens or your residents in Kaysville as well. You would hope that your zone and these ordinances that are put in place protect you from things like this happening, from you having to be surprised or saddened that you have to oppose your neighbor. I'm asking that we preserve this beautiful community, we protect the area around, protect the residents, and promote healthy growth and healthy building. Like earlier, these ag homes, all of this agriculture will one day be developed. The land across the street, as you see from us, is agriculture. It will be sold. It will be subdivided, and hopefully into a beautiful community with appropriately zoned open space. Even if it isn't R114, there is one development on the west side of Kaysville that is R114. I believe it's the Hill Farms development. They're beautiful homes, gorgeous. They're very southern looking, beautiful planned community. That planned is the key word here. It's well thought out. And if that were to go in across the street, I'd be thrilled. So my hope and desire today is that you'll consider what my husband has presented to you, looking at the legality, some of the ordinances, but then also consider more of my kind of emotional little fee to really think about allowing something like this to happen, because it will hit that level and cause a domino effect. Let's preserve, let's protect, and promote healthy development within the city of Kaysville. And let's keep it remaining the same and the best of the best along the Wasatch Front. And with that said, and I rambled on a little bit more, but with that being said, I'm asking for you to shut down that request. And not because I don't care for my neighbors and I don't think that they're fantastic people or are very good at serving the community. But I feel that this very talented developer can do great things if it is planned and promoted in the correct area.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come right up.
I'm Ron Cobley. Excuse me, I just live up the street to the north. I'm 1775 Sunset, same side of the street. I know the Joneses really well, known them. They built their house the same time I built my house in 2010. My only question is I've lived in Kaysville since 1983, and I've never seen anybody try and build a house between a house. And my question is and maybe this isn't a big deal, but what kind of precedence is that going to set for the rest of the city? If one person can put a small house between two houses, what's that going to say to the rest of the citizens of Kaysville? So that's my concern, and quite frankly, I don't know the Manns real well, but they're the people that are immediately affected because they're right next door. I think what they say should carry a lot of weight with the council. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll close the public hearing then. Open it up for discussion amongst the commission.
I think Mrs. Jones is raising her hand.
Oh, sorry. If you, sure.
I think I'll have some questions for them, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I did write a few of these things down as well. Now, I have, on this picture, there is a lot more space than there seems to be. As I walked the property and walked right next to the house that's there to the property line, and there, it's very ambiguous. That line is very hard to see. But there is a tree there that is on our property that would appear to be on the neighbor's property, but it is actually on ours. And there is 57 feet from my home to that place. And when I developed this, there was a home there, as I'd spoken about before. And it's not, as you can kind of see here, it's not exactly spaced evenly. There is open space on that one side that is very prominent. Now, and it's, the appearance that's coming in here is that I want to crowd these, and that is the last thing that I want to do. I've also been in contact with other developers and real estate agents to discern if this would lessen the property value for those that are nearby. And what I was told is that a small cottage there, or even the look of it is going to be something more like a mother-in-law's house or a small, tiny cottage on the side of it, would not lessen the value because there are so many other large homes there that they could use for comps, and it would not even fall into the same category as when it was an appraisal evaluation. I could also argue that if I were doing a 5-acre subdivision and we're allowed the 2 homes per acre, and one of the subdivisions that we're doing that right now at Old Farm at Case Creek off of Phillips Street, I would still be given room for roadways within that subdivision, resulting in the average lot size of 14 to 15,000 square feet and overall is what we're looking at here, is those 2 on that 0.69 acreage, not including the half acre that was given to the street. That's excluding that. And all we're asking for is 1 small cottage. We're not doing a development or a big subdivision. I've developed this whole area right from the very beginning. I want to live there. I want it to look wonderful, and I have no doubt that it will. And I want to help them serve those neighbors as I've done in the past. I've always made sure to take care of their needs as well. Right now, we talked a little bit about there are no covenants right now, and we've tried to keep this open space in the back wonderful for everyone who's involved. This would not cut off that open space at all. That's one of my directives, is that we could, under these circumstances, put a garage, put an addition, and there would be no variance, nothing there. But all we're asking for is that small space to do a small cottage home for us. Also, one of the things that is hard pressed for me is to have that open space right now and know that these things could be possible, but feel that if my neighbors look at that open space as a part of their value to their home, that's really hard for me, because that is our property. That's, you know, what we could do. There was the cottage there before. I understand that that this is not what anyone had in mind. And yes, we are trying very hard to stay. We are trying to be able to be in a place where we've worked very hard for the last 10 years, and we love it.
We're about to be empty nesters, and so we don't need a big house anymore. We want to build a little house. We want to stay where we're at. Absolutely want to stay where we're at. We love the neighbors, we love the neighborhood. But our house currently is just too big for the 2 of us, so we're thinking, let's see if we can stay, build a nice small small house right there and downsize and be able to retire.
So would the intent be to sell the existing home then?
Yeah, and we move into the small one. And the other, on the south side of us, kind of something comparable to that is when those neighbors came in, they put a large shed garage in the back that's a two-story. You can't, I don't know if you can really see, isn't it not on that map? And it's not an eyesore. It's just nestled in there nicely. We could have the same problem there, but it was a garage. It wasn't an issue, but it's the same type and size of structure that we're talking about. It has, our lot is larger than theirs, and our lot could accommodate that. And the other, you know, and whether or not it is, there are a lot of people who are very interested in that home, and yet perhaps they're not interested in doing all the yard work. That's why we put the PRUD over, for the back. We have an HOA that is set forth so that that always looks amazing and very well kept, and that would not be a problem. So it can serve actually in a really positive way as well. So I think that's just about it. I don't know if I addressed every single thing. You know, there are, you know, pockets of R14, R114, but and they have been there to serve to do large subdivisions. That's not my purpose at all, not at all. It's just to put a little cottage home right on the side. That's all.
Can I ask you a question about the common space in the back? So you said there is a HOA or there will be an HOA?
If it goes through, I have it, in fact, I think you may have it. Did we give that to them?
It's not been forwarded to the planning commission, but we have received a draft HOA or covenants for an HOA. The city requires one. If it's not a property with a dwelling on it, we need to know that somebody would take care of it. So we wouldn't necessarily be a party to it, but we do verify that there's some document recorded that takes care of it.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
And the homeowners association would just be those two homes?
Mm-hmm, exactly, yeah. And so, and then that would all be maintained both front and back and sides. And right now, I don't know, right now, I know that the easements would all be in place. We have 10 feet away from the existing house and 8 feet off of the property line. So all those easements would be kept. And the other thing, can we zoom in on that just a little bit, Lyle? On both the sides of those homes, and let's see here. Let me see if I can see if I can show it. Right here on this side and on this side of the home, it's also almost blind sides. There are no large windows that open up to that property. And so it's, from our home, you can't even see that side. That's not something you can see at all. Except for I think we've got some transom windows and maybe one bathroom window. And as far as I know, because I built that home next to him that was the man's, that has one window on the, right back in that corner right there.
Did you consider, and maybe it's not even buildable or you don't want to do more of a flag lot and put the house behind that house?
You know, that is an excellent thought. Let me just tell you, right now, it's kind of confusing. This area back here belongs to this home.
Okay.
And they are interested in subdividing. And our first choice would have been to have put a flag lot right there, but they're not interested at this time. Maybe later.
And where all those trees are, that doesn't.
Yeah, there's, because of because it's kind of a weird shape, there's not a lot of space to go back farther. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
So I have a few questions or comments, I guess.
You bet.
Where do I start? So I appreciate the neighbors that came and commented on your character as individuals, I suppose. I appreciate those comments, the service that you give to the community. In law enforcement, I commend you and express gratitude to you for that. Those things are, and I would guess that the Mans would probably echo that, those sentiments, but those things are not what we are really looking at, nor do they even factor in, nor should they, I think, factor into the decision that we're making. The things that do factor in are the general plan, what the ordinances say. And so I just have some questions related to that. Lyle, I don't know if it's possible, do you still have that PowerPoint?
I believe I can get it back.
I mean, we can all look at it as commissioners, but for everyone that's here, there's just a few slides that I think are illustrative or at least would facilitate some discussion, I think. If you just go to the second slide, that sort of grayish overview map.
That's true. That's true. Can I, before you change it, let me just say one other thing really quick. Let's see if is that the full slide, Lyle? Can we get any of this area right here? Or is that just?
Yep, just one moment.
Okay, awesome. Well, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but I think that right there is also a cottage home right there. And on the property just right past the man's home. There is a drive right there that goes up to a cottage home, and it's owned by this gentleman here. So that is also in our area, that we've got another little cottage home on a property as well. So it's not so, unusual.
So is this a home?
Yes, it is.
And you're saying there's one in here?
Yeah, there's a cottage
Okay.
home.
So
that's
that
a small
actually
one.
will get to one of my questions. We're asking Lyle to multitask.
Is that a different
Sorry,
parcel?
Lyle.
Subdivided, and that's the difference, and unfortunately, that's the whole issue, is if the Joneses were adding an additional home, cottage on their property, that would increase the value of the whole neighborhood. It would add to the grandeur of the subdivision. What they are doing is cutting their, slicing their property and subdividing it out. So, yes, when I look out my kitchen window, if you see, we have a very obscure property line because there was an original home where they're proposing to build the dwelling. Our home was shoved as far north as it could be. Our property is on this back corner as well, on that slant. I'll start shaking.
Okay.
You come back here, basically.
Right. So when I look out my kitchen window, I see that little cottage home. Sweetest, lovely little neighbor, Ellen, lives right there. I look out my window, I can see her, but there's a big space. But that is a home on our neighbor's property. It is not subdivided as an additional dwelling, and that's our concern. If the Jones proposed to add a home there, it would increase the value of the area.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question with that. So you're saying you're not opposed to if it were not subdivided and if they just had a cottage there? And,
It's their property,
yeah.
that's their right.
Well, okay, so I'm just curious because on I don't know if Lyle can pull it up, but if the commissioners, this building right here, see that? They're saying there's another one in there,
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
Yep,
That
right.
we're just not seeing on this massing image. So there, Lyle, correct me if I'm wrong, there cannot be two separate, single-family residential units on one unsubdivided property. Is that not correct?
Correct. It's possible previously under the city's ordinances, they allowed what's called
So-
a dwelling group, where that was the
Okay.
case as long as it remained under one property owner. I don't know the history on this particular one. If it is in fact, as they're stating, a
But you made
separate
it
permitted home, it could have been permitted at some time.
Okay,
Also under the county, depending on when they actually developed it.
sure.
But not under current.
But current ordinance would not permit it.
I'd like to point out what you're looking at. There is a driveway that runs next to my property here. Runs up through here. You can see that's actually a driveway. Runs down to here, comes out. There's grass. My home ends about right here. There's grass in between here, and then he has a slope. The driveway is up above. His driveway wraps around. You can see he has a turnaround here. This is his home here. I believe he had a second home, and I believe I don't know if he offers it up to a 90, or he rents it, or he offers it to a 90-some-year-old woman.
So there's a drive here.
Yeah. So,
And 2 homes on that lot.
so that, I mean, you know, this little, however big that is, cottage, let's call it, is not on this massing image we saw on the PowerPoint. But I mean, I suppose that changes things a little bit. But I guess I'll get to my question. So in the, you know, section 1734.1, which is the purposes of the PRUD, it's kind of, you know, we look at broader purposes. Why do we even have PRUDs? And then we look at specifics of PRUDs. I won't read the whole section, but it talks about how the new construction in the PRUD should maintain the massing, the scale, the width, the form. So I think I could guess what your answer is, but tell me, I'm struggling because I'll just be candid. It does not, to me, at first glance, seem to maintain the established massing and the scale and the width, aside from the lot sizing and all that. I'm just looking at the unit, the building itself, and how it's fitting. You see how so basically that cottage. There's another cottage right there, is what we're saying. But even putting that there, I mean, let's say it's the size of one of those two. It's still relatively spaced out. I mean, just visually, at first glance, you put one in there, and it still maintains the massing. Even I think you stick a unit in there, which, you know, I don't know, would probably be the size of that, maybe a little small, probably smaller than that.
Smaller than
but
that, yeah.
It would fit in there, and that, to me, doesn't seem to maintain the massing. Tell me what you think about that.
Well, let me say something too, first of all. Can we go to the actual, because there is, thank you, because there is a little bit more space in between there. Right there, there you go, thank you, right in between there. Can you zoom in on that? And I wonder if we can pull up like even the ones to the south too.
Lyle, what is this we're looking at? What do these blue things mean?
Those are roof lines.
It's the city's hope of representing buildings.
I know what they mean, people.
Okay,
I have a point. Why is there not a blue one right here?
Yeah, why isn't there a blue one right there?
If I had to guess,
right
so
there.
this is the city's GIS mapping system that has all sorts of data in it. And so they represent structures or buildings. For example, you can see a shed here and the house here. It doesn't necessarily include all of it because it was created based on aerial imagery.
Sure.
So based on what's visible and clear.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
It is heavily wooded. Well, and if you look, though, there is a space here that is, if you even drove by, you'd go, what's that space? I mean, it's actually, it's interesting. It is interesting. And there was a home there before we did it. So.
Well, and I think also that if you look at if you saw the rendering that we did, the front of the house, yes, it is a narrow house, but it does have some more depth to it than the other house. So when you talk about mass, you're not necessarily seeing that as a front view. It extends in the back, and so there is mass there. It's not going to be as big as those other two houses, but the idea was that we wanted to complement those so that if you were to drive by, you would think, that's a great old cottage house. That's a mother-in-law's house. That's absolutely beautiful. You would never know that it's a separate property.
So, okay, I mean, actually, that kind of brings up another point, and I don't know if you can still go back to the PowerPoint, Lyle. I mean, you can look at that image, but is there another way we can get that image bigger?
Yeah, and the other thing is the angle of that.
Sure, and I understand that.
That is not a great angle to show you the open space in comparison to the other side.
Yes, I get that. And I'm assuming this tree would stay and the driveway would be inside here, or would the tree go?
There's a lot of space there. That tree is actually the pride of Kaysville. It's got a
that
designation.
Tree is right there.
That tree is the biggest tree of its kind west of the Mississippi. So that totally will stay. But let me just show you. There is.
Wait, for real?
Totally. Totally, yeah. In fact, Vance
That's
was like,
but-
it was Vance's baby.
Okay.
So right here, there is a lot of space right here to do a driveway that goes back into that. It's behind that.
I get that there's a lot of space, but correct me if I'm wrong, that elevation you showed us, that home is going right there.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I took this picture. We have some stakes in the ground where.
Or right there. That's a better view for what you're saying.
Yeah. And there's some little small stakes that we put in there for the size of the house and the dimensions.
That's helpful. I don't know if you guys want to see it, but.
Lyle, while we're looking at that, have we definitively defined what a lot of space is? I'm hearing anything from 30 to 90 to a lot. A lot is very subjective. I really would like a definitive foot measurement. What do we have? And not just space-wise, but from the property line. Because what appears to be a lot of space shrinks substantially if you're talking where their property line ends. I have to consider that like a 90-foot wall. I can't count that in open space. I've got to simply look at what they own. Do we have that exact measurement?
Well, this slide, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but their measurements on this have been off because they have actually two different
we can at
measurements in
least
this handout.
use it as a reference.
Okay, so.
You know this slide?
Can I show you this really quickly? That right there is the property line
Yeah.
going back there. So it doesn't just go here. This is the property line.
So the edge of that home is going to be in here. Those stakes you just showed us on your phone.
It's right now between 8 and 10 feet off of that property line right there. And that
Yeah.
tree right there is on our side of the property. So it gives you an idea of where our property line and the open space there.
So I think I understand that. I personally don't think that fits the existing development pattern that's already there. But I have other questions. So, sorry, y'all. I've been quiet for a lot of meetings.
You haven't been here.
Or I haven't been here.
Yes,
bottled
there's a
up.
big
You're doing
difference.
great.
He's been saving up for a
And
long
quiet. Quiet too. So, if I understand this correctly, Mr. Mann's PowerPoint at least says, and you can, I'm giving you the chance to say yes or no if he's accurate, that the proposed lot would be 0.17 acres. Does that sound accurate to you?
The actual lot.
The actual lot that,
Not including the
not the
open space.
behind, the rectangle that's going to fit right there is going to be that lot.
Okay, so when I talked to Andy about this, he said that when you're doing, and maybe you can help me out here on this, because I don't understand all of how it all works. But he said, just so that they understand what their responsibility is and what ours is outside of the common space, that's why those are on there. Is that they just understand they have to maintain around their home and the common spaces in the back. So this was under the direction of.
Well, and if Andy were here, he would say what he thought. But my suspicion is Andy, when people come in like you nice folks, he's not there to tell them what they should or shouldn't do. He's just saying, look, this is what you can do under the ordinances if you want to do it. However you want to fix it, this is what the ordinance says. So my gut reaction to this has been that this seems to be I don't know if taking advantage is the right terminology. Taking advantage of the PRUD ordinance. It's not living up to the real purpose of what the PRUD ordinance is about. This is saying, how can we fit what we need within the confines of the PRUD ordinance? And there's a lot of flexibility in there, so it's not like it's a regular zoning regular zone where if you meet the requirements of the zone, we have no discretion. You get what you want if you meet the zone. This is not that. So we have some discretion there. And I feel like it's just because you love the place, and I don't fault you for that, you want to stay there, and so let's see how we can fit it in. And I don't think that's what's best for the community as a whole. I mean, that's just where I'm at, and I just want to, just so I'm clear, I think the massing, the scale, the width, I've already talked about that, the form of it doesn't meet the purposes of the PRUD ordinance. The size of the lot is very, very small. Half of what the minimum, approximately half, a little bit more, of what the minimum would be in an R114. The width of the frontage is extremely small compared to A, what's in an R114, and B, what's in the broader community, neighborhood. And so I don't necessarily think that it fits even R114, and I think it's taking a little bit advantage of the PRUD. It does feel a little bit like spot zoning. I know that that's sort of a term of art, so it kind of has different meanings than what we're saying, but I do feel like we would be spot zoning it a little bit. And because going back to the general plan, because it's out west, we do like, well, the general plan, I suppose, likes larger lots, 2 units per acre. So I think when we look at something like this, the presumption should be probably not approve unless we really like how it fits and works and it looks very nicely fit into the ordinances. I don't necessarily see that it meets that. So I think the presumption of a no, in my mind, would prevail. That's all I got.
All right, I'd like to echo a little bit what yeah, Commissioner Sunloff said, because I drive by these homes almost every day on my way home, and they're absolutely beautiful. I mean, if you designed these things, you did an absolutely fantastic job. I look at those homes and I go, God, those are just, they're very, very unique. And your rendering of the cottage is very attractive. But I think what's been said on some of this is we're tasked with looking at the ordinance and whether or not we think this fits with the PRUD and if it conforms as well. And as I look at it, I don't think it does for a lot of the same reasons on that. You know, you have some of the emotional comments that have been made, which are good, and even some of them dealing with the economics and values and stuff. And those are also things that we're not really can't consider into it. We just have to look like he said up front. Ours is we're more administrative versus legislative, and so we've got to look at this for what it is for us. And when I look at this, I don't think this is the intended use of a PRUD and how it is intended to be used. And you know, one of the biggest concerns I have is just the narrowness of the frontage. Looking at that narrowness, not just the lot size, but we're kind of horseshoeing that in, fitting that into it. No matter how beautiful it would be, it just doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't conform, it doesn't meet what PRUD is intended to do.
Well, that's why on agenda items 7 and 8, we did a PRUD, and I thought that really did fulfill and made the case to grant a PRUD for that.
I don't.
I don't. The one thing I'll say, and maybe this is not so much for the Joneses as it is for maybe everybody else, or both, we're just making a recommendation to the to the city council. So this is not the end of the road. Quite often the city council says, thank you, planning commission, but we will decide something differently. So we're just recommending, and they don't have to agree with us, or not. They can, they also can't. So
yeah, if you're welcome to interrupt me on the discussion, but Commissioner Wood had a few questions, and we'll attempt to address those if you're still seeking answers.
I am actually. Just a couple of comments. First of all, I'm not opposed to the rezone. I think that is appropriate based on some others in the neighborhood that have had similar things. My issue is the wedge feeling to this, trying to stick this as big as possible in as small a space as possible, and it does detract from the area. My question would be, and again, maybe just for future consideration, could you propose a flag lot? You've got what I consider a fairly large proposed common open space in the back that would accommodate your cottage type feel more similarly to your neighbor to the north. A small cottage that's kind of tucked away and hidden. The neighbors, don't hit it with their lawnmowers or trying to turn around because they're so close to it, and simply putting a drive along there. But I'm not sure that a drive would even fit based on the previous one we just did requiring a certain width of driveway. I don't know that we could wedge a driveway in there. Is that possible based on the space? Again, going back to my question, what is the exact width, and do we have appropriate setbacks? We're asking for a house. I'm not sure if a driveway would meet the requirements.
Yeah, I'll attempt to address that one first and go through the couple others that were stated already. So I apologize, bear with me as I flip through several items here. So the exact width, of the newly proposed lot is unknown. And this is the preliminary plat that we've got, so it's very conceptual. It doesn't have dimensions on those lot sizes. And as you've heard tonight, there are different measurements or things that are somewhat up to debate as what it actually is. So the best I can decipher is based on our mapping systems and the site plan used to construct the existing home is where the 50 feet comes from that north wall to the north property line. So with the 50 feet of space, hopefully to answer the two questions appropriately, there's a minimum 8-foot side yard from the existing house to the north. So 50 feet, you take out 8, that leaves 42 feet for the new lot. Based on those dimensions, again, I haven't surveyed the property and can't state that that's exact. Nor have I even taken a ruler on site as it has been done by the applicant. But based on that presumption, with 42 feet for the lot, that home also has to have 8 feet to the north and the south from its property lines. So 42 minus the 16 is where that 27 number has come from. And so that would have to be verified if
42 less 8, because you already took the 8?
We took the 8 for this lot, but we have to take 8 from the south and north side now on this lot.
Both sides.
And so that's the 16 is 8 twice. So there would be 16 feet between the two homes. Under a typical, again with the PRUD, if we know a specific request, not only is there possible deviation from a lot size, but setback requirements can also be modified if it were deemed appropriate. That might be a way to get a somewhat larger home in there.
But if he's talking about a 30-foot wide road, we have enough space to go through it.
And so to get to the flag lot question, correct. So as long as there's at least 8 feet, again, that leaves 42 feet, and that would allow, then it would exceed the minimum of 30 feet for the flag lot requirement.
Well, and I guess my question is, I'm still lost on the number of feet, because we're taking from what you said originally was 50 feet, and we're taking 8 feet on either side, and I'm not great at math, but I think that's 16, and 50 minus 16 is not 42.
If it's an existing home, correct. So to build a home, we're looking at the 42. So the 8 feet on either side of this house, they've already got beyond the 8 feet. I'm not sure the dimension to the south. So we're only talking about, in relation to this new proposed property line, 8 feet on the north side, leaving 42 feet. If it's specifically for a driveway does not have setbacks, so we're just specifically talking property lines. That exceeds the 30. And that may be the difference is once a structure is put in there, then it has to account for the 8-foot setbacks on either side of that. And you're correct, that would be substandard to the 30. But because the drive is not subject to setbacks,
So
it could fit within that area.
So if they did the flag lot with the home in the back, you wouldn't, it would only be the 8 feet on both sides. You wouldn't, because the home's in the back, you wouldn't have to count that on the lot or the drive approach, would you?
So a home in the back, the acreage would count towards the drive approach, and it's just the property itself that would have to be 30. So again, there's not a setback discussion in that.
Feasibly, into Tom's question, you could do a flag lot.
It appears to be feasible. We've not reviewed one and studied it to see if it works out, but it appears that there's enough frontage that could be done.
I'd be more inclined to that, because from everything we've seen, there's substantially more room between you and your back neighbor than there is between you and your side neighbor. And again, from appearance and just from general feel, wouldn't feel as wedged in there, would still leave you with roughly the same cottage home in the same neighborhood, on the same lot, all the same neighbors who would probably even like you more now. I would be personally more inclined to vote in favor of a rezone with a flag lot in that configuration than I am the way it's currently configured.
Now, there's a stream back there. I've been in a reception, attended a reception back. So is does your property line end at the edge of the stream?
No.
So the stream goes through your property? That's what I was thinking that it would. And there's trees and, yeah, it's very, very, very beautiful back there.
So flag lot, you'd lose that open space.
You would. I don't know
next door.
how you would do it with
Well, but
those.
it's to the back of the,
But
it's the
it'll-
back of the,
it'll work.
the extended lot, not cut through the common area. Right, I mean, it's right there.
Yeah. And so because I have been there for that event, but also just, I too go along that road. I have for years and years and years. I really like it. I just can't, my thing is similar to all the comments that have already been shared. And for me, I think rezoning to the R114 is just not making sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I asked about that flag lot at the very beginning, because I think that if it's hidden back there, then most of the problems go away. And I know that I'm also familiar with that area. I live quite close by, and I know how beautiful that is. And I would hate to have all that, the wooded area, you know, be plowed and put a house back there. But you know, that to me seems like it fits a little better, and especially with the, you know, with that little cottage that's hidden up that we talked about of the neighbors, it would be more like that where you don't really see it. I mean, we drive by there all the time and don't see that little cottage, or don't notice it anyway, so. Betty, we've all spoken except for you. Do you want to say anything, or do you want
Oh,
to
I'm
entertain
good.
a motion, or?
You've said it all.
We have a couple more hours.
We do? Okay, I would like, no.
Just to comment for the commission in relation to the flag light idea, I don't know if it's even on the radar for the applicant is something they'd be interested in doing, but with the request for the R114 PRUD, that's the same zoning and overlay that would be required to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the recommendation of the commission, that the zoning work, if that's the proposed plat, that can be a condition of the rezone. One thing just to be aware of, if it goes forward in any configuration and ultimately the R114 PRUD is denied, that specific zone cannot be requested for another year or so. If they wanted to come back and do a flag lot later or something, whether or not that's acceptable, again, for that specific request, they'd have to wait. So they could come ask for an R18 PRUD, I suppose, and kind of do the same thing. But if the R114 feels more appropriate to accomplish that, if that's the direction you're heading, just keep that in mind. As again, it's yours is the recommendation, but if the city council sides with that, that's partway the impact is that 1 year waiting period.
Right, and but that is, of course, what the city council decides.
Correct.
So, yeah. We ready for a motion? Do we have more discussion?
I'll make a motion unless someone wants to talk more.
I was, you know, the only thing that it's kind of extraneous really to us a little bit, but I've been to the city council meetings, even the last one, where our particular council is pretty sensitive to the west side of Kaysville, in case you didn't know that. So we're probably more open to things than the city council typically, I would say.
We're all looking at you, Josh.
You started.
Okay. So I will make a motion that we recommend a denial of a rezone 4.69 acres of property from R120 to R114 with a PRUD for the Joneses at 1809 South Sunset Drive.
I'd second that.
Where are we?
Where are we at?
So I'll do it. Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That was difficult. The next one is a preliminary plat approval. Do we do that separately and go through it again?
Well, as a separate item, again, were the council to decide that they want to approve the rezone, the plat would still be in play and worth considering. So as stated, based on the request, and the applicant will decide if they want to move forward, considering what they've asked for, the preliminary plat in concept does meet the minimum requirements of the requested zone. So based on that, staff recommended approval of that subject to those rezone being approved.
And it's funny because we have less latitude with respect to the approval of the preliminary plat.
Correct.
But that's the one, I would like to have voted nay on this last motion, and, meaning, and not recommend the preliminary plat approval, because I think the configuration is the bigger problem. The plat is the bigger problem here than the zoning. But it doesn't allow us that, at least in my mind, I didn't feel like we had the latitude to do that. So it's a strange vote, and for the city council, for the record, for the city council, that's where I am, is that it's more the configuration, and it's what almost everyone here has said.
Yeah. It's
is the
all
problem.
configuration. I have no problem with the zoning. I think the zoning is maybe not ideal, but appropriate, but the configuration was awful.
Well, I might just push back a little bit on that and say that for me personally, it was about the PRUD, because the PRUD talked about, the purpose of the PRUD was talking about maintaining the existing massing, form, scale, all of that, which certainly is tied to the plat. But that's a consideration. Those things are considerations we're looking at under the purposes of what a PRUD is, which is part of the rezone.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I
Yeah,
think
I
that's a
totally agree with
distinction
that.
makes sense. But it's that fine line between the PRUD, because of that is the way that it's designed.
Yeah.
Is the problem. So I think you're right, and ultimately, we made the vote on the motion, and I think it was, we entertained a lot of input, and all of us struggled with it, and it's one of those things that, our council representative here is paying attention, and he knows that what we've said, and he'll be able to convey it. So it's good that the city council gets to consider it anew, and that we struggled with it.
Yeah.
They get to watch the video.
I know, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I wonder why everybody's been on their best behavior.
Okay, so,
The council's asked us on matters that go from the planning commission with a recommendation that they be on the next possible agenda. If the mayor who sets that agenda needs to amend that, then we would send out a different notice to adjacent neighbors to let them know of a different date.
Doesn't the applicant have to request it, though?
The applicant can choose to carry it forward onto the next agenda.
So if they don't apply or request it, then it doesn't go, right?
Well, with their application already in, unless they withdraw it, the application process would continue forward, since we've already received application from them. And we have been asked by the council essentially to carry it on to the next meeting, if at all possible, so that they don't come back 3 months later and no one knew when to expect listening from the council. So they could technically do that, again, if there's reason that they aren't available to attend, at which point we would send out separate notice of sorts to inform the neighborhoods when that will actually be held.
okay, so what should we do with this preliminary plat approval item?
Again, as stated by the council, because it's a separate type of consideration, though the zoning is still up in the air as to whether or not it would be approved. Technically, the plat, if the zoning's in place, meets those minimums as far as a preliminary. Again, it's more the administrative versus legislative type action on it, and so that's where staff's recommendation is it be approved. But again, subject to that rezone. So if the rezone fails, the plat cannot move forward.
Okay, so we don't
So
need to vote on it then.
Well, I think you're saying we do. Do we have to,
There really isn't much reason or weight for saying no to this. Again, because the PRUD was your chance to say no.
So therefore, we should have a motion, is what you're saying?
We
or
do
should
need a
not?
motion on it and a recommendation. And again, it's because it's the administrative subdivision process versus the legislative rezone process. But the reason that the city's done the PRUD rezone in order to allow developments like this is it gives you your discretion during that stage of the process to decide whether or not it's
Zone
appropriate.
stage of the process. Okay.
Correct.
Right, okay. So let's have a motion.
And wisdom here to my left, tabling is also an option, if you'd like to see what takes place.
Yeah, I lean more towards not even saying anything about it, because it's kind of irrelevant in my mind, but even if it,
But the city council could approve the
True.
zone, right?
That's true.
And they would want to have had this.
And that's what I was going to say. Assuming it did get approved, I still would lean on the side of it is an abuse of the PRUD. So I even though the staff is saying let's assuming the zone was approved, PRUD and the R114, the staff is saying we recommend approval because it appears to meet the minimum requirements. I understand that, but I'm saying 0.17. I know PRUD allows for it, but that's almost half of what a minimum in a R114 is. The width of the lot is very small, smaller than what an R114 allows. So I'm just saying, even if we assume that the zone was approved, the plat has problems in my mind. So I would recommend to deny the plat too. That wasn't a motion.
I was just going to ask.
I was going to second that.
Okay.
No.
Well, yeah. I mean, can I convert that into a motion, I guess?
Well, and you are correct. I mean, even a plating process does have considerations because of the PRUD, so I apologize. I'm probably speaking out of two sides of my mouth, but in particular on this one, probably the more secure reasons, there's probably lack of information to give the approval for it, some of the dimensions and things on it that are unclear.
Yeah, it was, yeah, sure.
And
We
that
didn't
might
have
be
lot
more of a sound reason. You may be accurate and correct in what you've stated, and that could also be a reason for doing it, but if that's a sentiment, and that might be a little bit more easy to hold on the books is missing information in order to approve that plat.
Everything I had said before, Anne Marie, plus lack of information. Namely, dimensions,
Is your motion.
sizing, those sorts of things. That is my motion.
I'll second that motion there.
So it's a recommend to deny. Okay.
Approval.
Of the plat.
Of the plat.
Right.
And you're up first.
So I'm going to agree, so we're denying. Aye.
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 I'm going to say nay for the reasons I said before. I don't like the zone, I don't like the configuration, but I'm inclined to think that it fits if the zone's in place, but I don't like it either, so that's
Yeah.
my choice.
All righty.
Oh, and to think, we're not done yet. Okay. Public hearing and preliminary final plat approval for Charlie's Acres, number 2, third amended subdivision at approximately 2050 West, 200 North, Terra Basin LLC.
Okay. As an introduction, the property essentially just west of the corner of Angel and 200 North. It's a general commercial zone property. Has been starting to develop. Not too long ago, what's shown on here is lot 202, I believe it is, was divided and is currently under construction. The developers have now, anyway, I think this is the older plat, so I apologize. The developers have asked to split off another half-acre property directly to the west of this subdivision. I believe the plat map in your packet is correct. So this is showing the previous subdivision, and so your packet does have the proposed preliminary and final plat that's been reviewed. Meets all requirements. Engineering and other staff have reviewed it. Based on what's proposed, staff's recommending approval of the plat as proposed.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Great. I wasn't trying to be funny there.
Well, it was.
Darn it, I'm funny when I'm not trying to be. I'm not when I try.
Leaving you in suspense.
Okay. I thought you were looking for something more. Okay. Thank you for your complete report. We will now open public hearing. This item, is there anyone here to speak on this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion, concerns?
Was
I
this
have
the
none.
medical? Is there-
Uh,
Yes.
Correct. On this lot has the medical building currently under construction, so on the screen, it would be directly west of that,
Okay.
which in your plat, or your packet shows the actual lot.
I think we're ready, are we ready for a motion? People
Sure.
have concerns we want to discuss?
No.
Okay,
Okay. I'll move.
do it.
That we recommend approval for Charlie's Acres Number 2, third amended subdivision, and the preliminary and final plat approval for Terra Basin LLC at approximately 2050 West, 200 North.
Second.
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Next is item 12, final plat approval for Sunset Equestrian Estates Phase 17B subdivision at approximately 950 South Angel Street, Symphony Homes.
Okay, as the planning commission's aware, Symphony's been building a lot of homes in the Sunset Equestrian area. They're just moving on to yet another phase. This current one that's proposed is 17B. You can see the church building on Angel Street, and then Snow Horse Elementary and the junior high to the north. So it fills in that portion along Angel Street between those two properties. The preliminary plat that's been previously approved shows the phase down here on the bottom left of the screen. Everything seems to be in order and consistent with what's been proposed and approved under their preliminary approvals. Based on that, staff's recommending approval of the final plat as proposed.
Thank you.
And this is by the park, right? Isn't the park somewhere close?
It is close to the new park. It is further north. You can see
Further-
it best on their preliminary plat. Phase 17B is here, that church building that we could see in the pictures here. The park is this
There we go.
area here, so it's just outside of our picture.
It's going to be so nice.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion then that we recommend approval for Sunset Equestrian Estates Phase 17B subdivision final plat approval for Symphony Homes at approximately 950 South Angel Street.
I'll second.
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you. Would you like to come to the front and just state your name so you can show that you're here and waded through all of this?
Wow, good job.
Some of you may know me, I'm John Wigley with Symphony Homes, and we're located at 526 North, 400 West in North Salt Lake.
Right.
And we're pleased to present this, and what was not indicated there, we actually are going to, that Central Park and Trail, and all the rest of the park area, we're actually going to develop that concurrently this summer, but Commissioner Allen was basically ahead of schedule.
Oh, great.
Be great.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well, John was one of the first ones here too, so man, you stayed extra long.
Okay, you get extra credit for sitting through all that other
You should stay
stuff.
another minute and have, you know, be here for, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's see.
Probably not even billing by the hour either.
I know, tragedy. Okay. Final plat approval for Parkwood subdivision Phase 2 at approximately 35 West Shepherd Lane, Jack Fisher Capital.
Okay, so if you've seen the development, it's being done under the name of Henry Walker, but Jack Fisher Capital is the applicant on that. Phase 1 has been developed and several homes are under construction already, just right around the bend of Sunset and Shepherd Lane, excuse me. So just to the south of that, they're looking for another 25 new lots, ranging from 12,000 square feet to 29,000 square feet in size. This is the preliminary plat. Colors aren't very obvious on this, but this darker area here is the Phase 2. As they were originally approved in their preliminary phase, the final plat matches what they've shown, and with the road configuration and the lot layout. And based on that and the details that staff's reviewed regarding the technical aspects of the subdivision, we're recommending approval of the final plat as proposed.
Only question I have on this one, I don't have a problem with it, it's just a question, because when we first approved it, there was the concern about the water. Up there, I remember going walking it, and it was pretty watery, and they were coming up with some type of method to do it. Have there been any issues or problems at all that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of them yet. The homes are just going in, so I guess to be seen, but the property's developed, and the applicant here may have additional information with, apart from the storm drain system, a few land drains, I believe, are implemented as part of it. I believe this area here is kind of a low point and a spot of concern under the development, but I think that's been addressed through the engineering and development of the site with the plans that we've seen.
Is there going to be basements?
I believe the basements are permitted on all the lots, if I recall correctly.
I think we did have a discussion about that being part of the focus of the staff as they went through the development. Are you from, do you want to come up and?
And wasn't there a neighbor, like an existing homeowner right next to it who was concerned also about?
Yeah, it's the retainage.
Yeah,
of it.
right, exactly.
So as far as stormwater goes and groundwater, we're putting in the line drain system is in phase 1 and working great. It's dried up the whole area quite a bit. And then as far as phase 2 is a low spot, like I said. We've been working with the sewer district to pipe the stormwater from the city's surrounding area. It goes into our subdivision right now. It'll catch the water from phase 1 and phase 2 and then go through the sewer district property to Bear Creek. So be able to, it'll help the whole area quite a bit, because right now, before phase 1 was done, the surrounding area all kind of dumped into the King's property there. And so we piped it through the water property for now, but that's just a temporary solution. So it went before the board.
Where are those properties we're talking about?
So right now, the stormwater from these subdivisions all around here, in phase 1 all come to about right here, and they go around Otter's property over to Bear Creek. That's just a temporary solution, and so the water will be piped through here. It'll go under this dirt road here, in a ditch over to Bear Creek. And that went before the sewer district board for approval, and they recommended approval. And they approved it, we're just working with them on the design now.
I see.
Great. And then some of the concerns that the neighbors expressed, existing neighbors, they're fine and.
Yeah, I think it's actually helped, especially the neighbors. We've learned as we've constructed phase 1 that there's a clay shelf probably about 4 feet down that just catches all the water from all the irrigation water to the east. And it pretty much hits that.
Just,
Onto our property.
okay.
Wow.
So nowhere for it to go but
Nowhere for it to go.
horizontal.
We put in some pretty extensive drainage systems along the entire east side of the subdivision to catch all of that before it gets to a home. We did French drains outside and around in addition to the land drain system, to be able to protect the homes from them. And so far it's been, we put it in and it went from standing water to completely dry to up to about 12 feet down.
Wow.
In a matter of about 2 weeks, so.
That's great.
Great.
Along the east side, and they've been pretty pleased with that, so.
Isn't that great?
What's the lifespan of those drainage systems? Do they have a point at which you have to?
So if we, they're, I mean, I don't know if I can give you an exact length of time.
Yeah.
But they're designed in a way to last. We put, they're wrapped in a fabric sock to keep any of the sediments from going into them and clogging them up. And then anytime it turned a corner, we put a clean out that came out of the ground so that if it ever becomes clogged, we can snake it or get it with water to keep it.
And how does that, who pays for that? How does that?
So we
maintenance
put
go down?
we kind of back and forth with this with Andy quite a bit on the best way to do that. Because initially, we were just going to put it all the way around the subdivision, then you can start crossing property lines and things. And so we put one on each lot, so it basically surrounds the lot. And it would be that homeowner would maintain that.
Okay.
If that ever has an issue.
I see.
And they're made aware of that when they close on the home.
Is that something that's recorded on the property, or how does that?
Well, it's recorded. It is not recorded on the property.
Okay.
And that's what you're calling the French drain?
That's the French drain.
Yeah.
It's basically an expanded version of their land drain right back there. It connects to the same system. So it comes up and goes around the footing, and then it goes out around again, around the lot, just to catch that water before it gets to the.
Yeah. I think my home has a French drain.
You probably already know this, at least the risks, but I'm currently in the middle of a lawsuit on a development about this size to the south with this exact problem. And there's water in like every basement. So, you know, if you do it right, that doesn't happen.
And if you do it wrong, you got to deal with him. So.
Yeah. I'm just curious, this is a totally different subject. Lorene and I went to a Wasatch Front Regional Council meeting, was it yesterday?
Yep.
And there's there's West Davis corridor that's going to come in way out here at some point. And Lyle might know this, you might know this, a consensus here, I'm sure we could answer this. Is this UDOT preserving the right-of-way to connect to that in the future? Do you know?
We've been talking to UDOT quite a bit about that. It's one of their options.
Because that borders your south side of you, huh?
It does. And if you look at our plat, it's hard to tell on this, but you can actually see.
Yeah, right here?
This strip of land right here.
Oh, right there, okay.
Actually held out for that reason in case they went that way.
Because and then I see I can't, it's grayed out, but I assume that's just something about future right-of-way or.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
They're a willing buyer right now.
Mm-hmm.
If they're willing sellers, but they're not actively seeking it out.
Yeah.
We talked to Randy Jeffries from UDOT, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and right now they haven't made the official announcement, but they're not going this way.
They're not going to.
They're not going to.
They're going to go down,
Okay.
was it Glover?
Yeah.
Glover.
So they said, I think they're planning on making that, I don't know if you've heard anything about this, but I think it's coming within the next couple of months. And then they have a final public input, public hearing type deal with it, and then they finalize it.
So they're recommending to not use this, but it still could possibly, because there's a big open right-of-way right there, all the way over to this L Street coming over here.
Yeah, my discussions with Andy, I met with Andy and talked about this actually a couple weeks ago. If UDOT doesn't go through they're not, it appears.
There will be a road somewhere.
The city still wants that area.
Ah, okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
so even if we had initially planned that if UDOT didn't go that way, that those lots would just get bigger.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. If UDOT doesn't go through there, it'll still be eventually dedicated to the city to become the right of way.
It looks to me like it'll be another future Layton Parkway.
Where's the,
You know?
where's the city boundary?
Yeah.
The red line.
What are those blue things?
I thought they were buildings.
You really caught us on that one.
Well, we all knew the answer finally.
What are you asking?
On the roofs.
That was a dumb question. I get it. Okay.
It was rhetorical. Just
Yes,
know where
right.
that cottage is at, though. How did that?
Yeah, I could have just cut to the chase, right?
So
Yeah,
the city boundaries, the red border here, the property we're discussing is right
Yeah.
here.
And what I think is going to happen is there's going to be an interchange at Shepherd, and it's going to come
Right.
down like that.
And that's the anticipation
And you can
is,
see, it looks like they're already doing something here. All that's going to be right away. It's going to connect right there.
So people can go to the corridor or to Shepherd, right? That's what you're saying.
And if you look at our phase 2 plat, we're stubbing a road to that right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's the mink farm?
that's these
Oh, that's
properties.
So you got a double whammy right there and right there.
We're flying like hotcakes. The main farm and the strip mall.
Yeah, so we anticipate, depending on what UDOT's plans are, in fact, when they came in for the preliminary plot process, because of its location to potential corridor, we were required as a city to notify them of the process, and obviously they've been in contact and didn't have any objections or to the proposal. So it's 3 months. It sounds like they may announce when it is. It was supposed to happen years ago, so who knows when we'll actually know. But whether it's the option that's chosen for the West Davis corridor to connect over through Shepherd Lane, or if it goes south into Glover's, Farmington has been very vocal on at least having a connector road through there, and they've preserved this right away for something.
What we saw was it actually is going to originate at Glover. West Davis corridor is gonna originate at Glover, but
Another
there's gonna be a
connection.
connection from here over.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying, but,
Correct. That would be a collector road of sorts.
yeah.
And if it exists, then there may be an interchange onto West Davis corridor onto that collector.
Yeah.
So will people that are going south to Salt Lake, will some opt to go west and get on the corridor?
You would have two options. The designs that I've seen,
Yeah.
Shepherd would be reconfigured so you can get on and off the freeway at Shepherd, as well as the option to get onto West Davis corridor.
So they're gonna put okay, I didn't know about that Shepherd access.
They're gonna screw up the T-box and the green there at Oak Ridge too, I think.
I'll just be a little less jealous of the drive through. The people golfing. Don't you guys work?
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there? See, some of them are easy questions, right?
Yeah, and it had nothing to do with it.
But we're impressed with your drainage.
Yes.
Nicely done.
And yeah,
Nicely done.
yeah, 20 years is when we're really impressed. Yeah.
So once in a while, we actually do make a little bit of difference, and when we listen and give input.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you very much. Just take a motion.
Well, if we're ready, I'll make a motion then that we recommend approval for Parkwood Phase 2 subdivision, final plat approval, or Jack Fisher Capital at approximately 35 West Shepherd Lane.
I'll second the motion.
Aye.
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 Okay, call the public.
It's up
No
to you.
public. All right, then we'll close the call of the public and go to reports, correspondence, calendar.
Unless the commission has any correspondence or items, we'll be just back on the second Thursday in April, which is the 13th. And I believe that is everything.
Do you just want me to mention the, when we went to that meeting yesterday, the mayor and Mr. Scott, city manager, were also there, and so not just Kaysville, but other communities all around us had people there so that we could weigh in on various scenarios. They gave us a booklet from the Wasatch Front Regional Council, which helps with planning the next several decades into the future. And then they had this booklet about the Utah's Unified Transportation Plan, also going out to 2040. But the main thing, I guess, that we could spread the word about is they're looking for feedback. So just like when we worked on the active transportation plan, and they were really eager for input from residents in the areas where the ideas were being proposed, same thing with this. And so there is actually a website, and we can post this as a city, and we can post this on other social media for people to say whether they want additional public transit, how they want additional public transit, how they envision our community connecting with other communities around us. So there's different scenarios and a lot of different options. And the website is wasatchchoice.com/scenarios. So a regional transportation plan, but a lot of active transportation stuff, as well as ideas for commercial developments within this part of northern Davis County. They were specifically showing us ideas for northern Davis County. And we, I think, are an anomaly in Kaysville with our density restriction west of the highway, which, as you recall, we talked a lot about and had a different recommendation than what the city council decided when the plan was updated. So we're standing out where we live. Is there any, did I capture that?
Well, I mean, on that note, I can't remember exactly how it was conveyed, but it seemed to me that one of the scenarios and maybe the preferred options included, and it was put to votes in other similar meetings with similar attendees, and those were elected officials, planning commissioners, city staff. In, I think, the whole of Davis County, the push, or at least the preference for the next several decades, was to increase the density of housing. And I think there's a difference between what, you know, the experts or the planners or whatever would say that was reflected in that vote that we saw shown on the slide, and what the elected officials do. And
Meaning that people recommend higher density, but the elected officials don't.
we should do higher density. It's a good idea because X, Y, Z on down the list. It's what the region needs. It's what growth needs. It's on and on and on. It is a good idea from a planning perspective and the future perspective. All these things. But elected officials sometimes don't fall in line with that because they want to stay where they are, and they think that if, I mean, we already know the struggles of density on the west side or the east side of Kaysville. We've had some of those recently here before the Planning Commission. West side's even worse. And so what we should do is not always what we actually do. That's what I kind of grasped from that little portion.
Do you think, do you think we should do more density? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I'm not saying that I think, you know, we should have apartment complexes dotting the landscape. But I think density can be artfully done and successfully done. I think Hill Farms is a great example of that, especially the western side of Hill Farms. All of the you know, supposed detriments of multifamily housing or higher density housing. We're not talking necessarily multifamily. We're just saying higher density.
Just saying 4 per acre.
Yeah, all of those supposed detriments, which, as I think I've said before here, are largely anecdotal. People just say, "Oh, my property value is going to go down. There's going to be too much traffic. You know, there's going to be too many renters. There's going to be a lot of people coming in that I don't like." Is what it oftentimes comes down to. You go ask the people that live in that west side of Hill Farms, I would be pretty surprised if people were unhappy with that density. So I think that kind of density certainly needs to be
Yeah, but you're talking about
added.
people buy into the density as opposed to have the density thrusted upon them.
Well, and I get that, but so let's expand my, now I'm the one just you know, being hypothetical. Expand it. I'm sure you ask the neighborhoods around that Hill Farms, you might get the one-off exception, but most people will be like, yeah, it's great. We haven't noticed it. It's wonderful. It's high quality. It looks great, you know. So I think that sentiment will probably slowly, no pun intended, die off out in West Kaysville.
I think
As with those who hold that sentiment?
That's not what I said.
That's what you weren't saying.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take I appreciate that report.
Yeah.
just real quick on, so I don't forget, I'll be out of town on April 15th. I gotta get away from the IRS, so I will be gone. Well,
And I will be 50 by April 15th.
50?
I will be.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that.
Thanks. 10th,
Yeah, I'm sorry, 13th, yeah, not the 15th, that's when
my birthday's
that's
the
when I
10th.
come back.
I'm sure you wanted to know.
So,
50's the new 30, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
That's what we keep telling ourselves.
yep, 13th.
Yeah.
I feel like that's bad for me for some reason. Okay, I think I'm here. All right, should we take a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you.
Another good meeting.